in the bodybuilding competition world, you have, for women, there's the bikini division, which is the smaller division, and it's more about like being toned, and I say that with like finger quotes because that's what they tell you. And then there's a figure division, which is they're a little bit more muscular, the posing is different.
Okay.
They need more muscle mass, and they need to be a little bit leaner. And then there's women's physique, which is, you know, bigger than that. And then there was women's bodybuilding, but they took that away from the sport.
They don't have women's bodybuilding anymore?
They took it away because they took away like the Mrs. Olympia women's bodybuilding title because it wasn't, I don't know, sexy enough. And
I did a TV movie where I starred as a girl who was started off as a fat girl who became became a bodybuilder, and I won my competition, which is hilarious because I had a month to get into.
Oh my
God!
God.
It was just so ridiculous. It was an 80.
What's that movie?
It was
We might have
called
to check
Getting
that out.
Physical.
Okay, all right.
And
put it on your list,
It
people.
was so crazy, but it was about bodybuilding in
Yeah.
terms of, you know, they had the bodybuilding champions as extras and all around me. But, and so I'm really surprised. A lot of them look great. Like Lisa Lyons looked amazing. But I think maybe they couldn't decide. Are we just about muscles? Or are we about the balance between muscles and femininity? And so they started.
right, yeah, and I think that it didn't really make sense that they did that just because the bikini, you know, you have different things for each division. But I did bikini. My dream was to eventually move up to figure once I had, you know, trained enough and put on more muscle mass. But I didn't get there because I ended up leaving bodybuilding once I saw, you know, the sexism of it, and I just saw how bad it was for me to put so much emphasis on my aesthetic rather than who I was or what I was doing.
Okay, let's
in
talk
life.
about that because you had gotten the breast job,
Yeah,
which
and
you
then-
wanted. You'd gotten second in a competition, which made you ecstatic. You looked the way the Victoria's Secret models were. So you basically got everything you thought would make you happy. What happened then?
So I had the biggest epiphany, life-changing summer when, after all of that happened, I got shredded. I had a 6-pack. I had a trophy from a bodybuilding show. I got my boobs done so that I could keep on competing and I could win. And then plus I thought that, you know, it would just, you know, make me feel more confident. And also at the time, while I was competing, I had gotten a job in a marketing company and I was getting paid really well. So, you know, I had money in the bank. I had a good job title for somebody my age. I had everything that I thought, all of the superficial things that I thought I needed. And I realized I felt so empty and alone. And one day I just completely broke down and I was home alone and I felt like I didn't want to go on any longer. And I called suicide hotline, and the woman who the operator ended up talking to, she, you know, asked me all these questions, and then she told me, well, it sounds like you don't really know what your purpose in life is. And when you don't feel like you know what your purpose is, you're going to feel like you have no reason to go on. And I kind of was like, whatever, I wasn't in a good place to have a conversation with somebody, but that conversation did calm me down and it got me thinking, and I thought about my purpose. And I didn't like my job at the marketing company. I was in charge of events that sold cable. And like for like hot, very, very, very expensive cable TV and for your phones and everything. And I just knew, I was like, there's no purpose in this. This is not why I'm here on this planet. And
So how did you find that purpose? What happened for you to get that purpose?
well,
I want to make sure that in our discussion that we get to the place where you then, so we can have the uplifting part, which has been part of your life.
yeah.
After all this. So
Yeah. Well, like I said, that was a major turning point for me, realizing that all of those superficial things brought me no happiness. And I started to spiral down, and I fell into a really bad eating disorder because my relationship with food had over the past 2 years of, you know, competing, it already became so morphed because I was only eating whatever it took to get shredded.
So I imagine once you got that trophy and you had to keep working so hard to maintain this, right? That your relationship with food must have been tortured.
Right. And what you're supposed to do is after you do a competition, you're supposed to reverse diet back up to a normal level of eating. You're not supposed to diet down any further. But because I didn't feel that happiness after all of these things, I just wanted to, it's really hard to explain, but it's almost like I felt like I wanted to disappear. And I just kept eating less and less because
I get that. Being invisible.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that, because as time went on, like I already knew how to manipulate my body. I knew that if I ate less, you know, I would lose a little bit of weight. I was already like super, super thin. And I was thin, but I had muscle in my body just from weightlifting so much. And then I had to take time off because of the boob job. And I just started eating less and less and less to the point that I would have maybe like half of a whey protein shake mixed with water in a day. And I, you know, doing that, my mind became so fogged and everything. And during this time also, I had gotten a puppy, which was probably a poor decision because I was not prepared for a puppy, but I was doing anything I could to find happiness. And my dog ended up being a major blessing to me because one day I was really trying to get myself to eat again because I still had a relationship with my bodybuilding coach, and he kind of caught on to the fact that I wasn't eating. So he would say, okay, like, you need to eat at least a couple of ounces of chicken or something like that. So I was just doing whatever I could to make people think that I was okay. And everybody did think I was okay. I mean, I was 30 pounds underweight, and like my family didn't say anything to me. And
because now you look like a Victoria's Secret model, or that sort of idea,
right,
which is what our ideal is these days.
And I think the fact that nobody said anything to me probably just made it a lot worse because I felt like nobody noticed me, so then I just kept on, you know, eating less and less, and then one
which
day,
is ironic because you wanted to be invisible, but at the same time you didn't. You were screaming out for people to notice.
I guess looking back on it, I mean, it was a call for help. Like I wanted to be invisible, but at the same time, like I wanted somebody to, you know,
especially the people who love you the most. You want them to notice you.
Exactly. And one day I went grocery shopping. I bought some chicken, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna like really try to like eat today. And I did like what I would normally do is buy like a pack of the, you know, cage-free or organic chicken or whatever. And
BS.
Yeah, exactly. And I started cooking it, and I had this little puppy, and he's a little Pomeranian, and he was so tiny, and he was just like sitting up looking at me because he wanted food. And I was cooking the chicken, and I looked down at my dog, and I was like, okay, what if this chicken was dog meat? Like, just dog meat and chicken look the same. And it just freaked myself out. And I just thought, how would I know the difference if somebody tried to feed me my dog? Like, I wouldn't really know the difference, but I would never eat, you know, a dog. And the whole idea of it just freaked me out. Like, it just hit me.
And that just popped into your head. It just came in from nowhere.
Yeah, it just popped into my
head. Not everybody has that experience, obviously.
Right. For a lot of people, you know, they see a documentary or they see something online, like a video. It was honestly, my house was silent, and I just had some raw chicken, and I looked at my dog, and I just thought, this doesn't make any sense. And I lost my appetite, and I got on the computer and I searched, why do people go vegetarian? Because I didn't know like vegan was a thing. And I started reading all these articles about the environment and just the whole agricultural industry in the West and how it has this major effect on the world. And I was so highly emotional at the time because of my, you know, my state. And I just like broke down crying, and I just thought, like, how could I continue to, you know, live this lie or to keep on doing something that is so wrong? And because I guess I had felt like up to that point I had been like broken so many times, and then I thought, how could I live a life that contributes to so much suffering?
We're with you.
Yeah,
we're right with you.
And it was about the animals, but it was more about, for me at the time, it was more about knowing that there's people starving in third world countries, and we have so much food here, and we just feed all this corn and grain to animals who get viciously slaughtered. And I just decided I was never going to eat meat again, but I didn't even know what vegan was. So I just started watching YouTube videos and looking for some sort of example. And I came across Freely. She was like one of the only vegan YouTubers that were like really had a lot of followers at the time. And
This is Freely the Banana Girl?
right, Freely the Banana Girl. And, you know, she did like a raw food diet, and I'd never heard of anything. I thought it sounded crazy, but I was like, if this is what I have, if I have to eat bananas all day, I'm going to do it.
Just not eating any more animals.
And this was about animals. This wasn't about losing weight or anything
right.
like that.
It suddenly just occurred to me that I had all this focus on, like, all of my focus on food was about my body. It was about trying to look perfect or trying to just, you know, I wanted to disappear. And all of a sudden I realized, like, all of those material things don't mean anything to me. And I thought about the conversation I had with the suicide hotline operator, where she asked me what my purpose was, or if I thought I knew what my purpose was. And I thought, well, I don't know exactly what my purpose is, but if there's this amount of suffering going on in the world, my purpose cannot possibly be to try to be like a perfect bikini model or to try to have a perfect body. Like, what does that do for anybody? It does nothing. All it's done is brought me into a major episode of depression, to nearing the point of wanting to end my life. And I realized right there that I just wanted to start making some changes. And I basically went into my anorexia recovery right there, and I did it completely vegan. So, and I never, you know, went back.
Did you get help, or did you do it yourself?
I did it myself for a little while, and then I went to a therapist. And like I said, my family didn't ask any questions or anything like that. The only person that said anything to me was, I had a roommate at the time who I had lived with her temporarily just because I was fighting with my mom so much. And one day my roommate was like, you know what? You look gross. She said it in a really mean way, but in a way where it kind of like, you know, I was like, what do you mean I look gross? And she was like, you look so skinny. You've lost so much weight. Like, I know, because she knew I was competing. She worked at the gym with me. She was like, I know, you know, you were competing and everything, but you've just taken it too far. And I remember I was posting like fitness stuff on Instagram at the time. And I remember posting a selfie and getting comments from people saying, ew, you're too skinny.
Oh, wow.
And you probably thought would never have been possible, like, right?
Right. That's a comment that I never thought I would ever get, because my whole life it was like,
and did you believe it though? When you got it, did you go, oh, there is such a thing as too skinny?
I don't quite know if it, you know, registered in my head that way, but all I thought was like, wow. So before I was too thick, I was curvy, I was too short, I was this, I was that, and now I'm too skinny. So it's like, no matter what I do, nobody's going to be happy with what I look like. So I have to be happy with what I look like. And I decided to get help actually because I went vegan and I was eating basically raw till 4, just because that was the only diet I had found at the time. I didn't know about like all these other ways of, you know, eating vegan, because there's a million ways to eat. Yeah. And I was eating, you know, mostly fruit, and then I would eat like one cooked meal. And I started feeling really energized, and I was feeling a lot better, but I still had a lot of like weight to gain to just be back to like a healthy weight. And I realized when I went back to the gym, I saw like a group of my friends, and I was like, hey guys, guess what? I went vegan. I thought it was going to be like this great. I thought they were all going to be like, what? That's so cool.
Good job. It's amazing. Yeah.
And instead they were all like, they all started laughing, and they're like, that's a joke. You're going to be eating meat in like a week. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? Like, for the animals, is for the, you know, for my health, for the, you know, the environment. And they were like, no, like, because like I said, I was the person who mocked people if they said they were vegetarian, because I was like truly like a meathead. Like, I was always in the gym. I was always like, how many grams of protein are you eating? And
did you feel different when what changed for you both physically and spiritually when you went vegan?
Physically, I felt, like I said, I had a lot more energy. So I would wake up in the morning and I would jump out of bed, and I didn't feel as like groggy and foggy as I had felt before. And then spiritually, I felt like a lot of emotional detoxing at first, just because, like I said, I was coming to terms with like realizing there was all of this suffering in the world that I couldn't really control. I could only control like my choices. And I dealt with like a lot of emotions coming to the surface that I had suppressed. So my insecurities from when I was younger, and like the pain I felt from my dad's accident and my parents' divorce, and all of the times that I had been depressed and I felt alone. It was just all like came bubbling up. And I think that had to do with, I was eating so healthy that it was like my body was just detoxing. I had all of this suppressed stuff in my body. And yeah, when I went and told my friends at the gym that I was going to be vegan, they all laughed at me. And then, I was really, really skinny at the time still. And they were like, yeah, well, like you have no muscle and blah, blah, blah.
So now your job is to get muscle as a vegan.
Right. So
Yeah.
then
on.
How was that?
It was so much easier than I didn't even go into it thinking, oh, this is going to be hard. Because I was so motivated by the fact that I was like, okay, I'm going to prove to everybody that you can do this. And I was just so motivated at the time that it didn't even like occur to my mind, like, oh, what if I don't get enough protein? I didn't have any of those questions. I just knew it was going to be fine because I just thought like, how could eating like fruits and vegetables and rice and beans, like how could that possibly be unhealthy in any way? I didn't think that way.
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense, doesn't it? And
yeah.
And so you gained back a lot of muscle on a vegan diet.
Yeah.
And now you help other people because I read that you won't even take clients who want to be bikini models, that you don't want to encourage that.
Yeah. So I started coaching a little while later because I had to go through my recovery. So I had to rebuild my relationship with food. And I was eating vegan, but I still wasn't eating enough because I just had this, this fear of weight gain. And I started seeing a therapist and she really helped me get through all of that. And once I had gone through that, I would say about a year and a half, I was posting, my fitness journey. I had been posting my fitness journey since I started training in the gym. But now I like announce it to the world, like I'm vegan, and I was very proud of it. And I got a really positive reaction. It wasn't until like way later on that I started getting like trolls that were mean about it.
Sure.
But I got a really positive reaction and people started messaging me being like, hey, I'm really interested in going vegan. And I see that you have like a nice body and you work out a lot. Like, can you coach me? And I realized that there weren't enough people that were able to help people with the thing because I just figured it out myself. Like I just did a lot of research. I went and got my personal training certification. I took the plant-based nutrition course because there was nobody out there at the time. Now there's more, services that offer that, but there was nobody. So I decided I'm going to figure it out myself. And I did. And then people started coming to me for help. So I thought, okay, yeah, I can help you. And I just started doing it a little bit on the side. And then I realized I can make, a living out of this so I could put more energy into it. Because if I turn, one person vegan and then they turn one person vegan and then they turn one person vegan, then it's all worth it. And then plus they're training, so they're getting healthier, they're getting stronger, they're getting confident in their body, which is something that is so hard for so many people. My relationship with food is night and day to what it was, years ago. And I'm so passionate about food now. Especially I feel like when I decided to go plant-based, I became more of a foodie, and that's why I feel like a lot of people get concerned with when they hear like anorexia and vegan. They think that those two things, can't go together. But I was able to heal from my anorexia with a vegan diet because I became passionate about food again. Because I started thinking, okay, what can I cook for my family that they're gonna like and they're not going to make fun of me for being vegan? So I started like making different recipes. I learned how to make cheese, like all of these different things, and I started to love it. And like I never used to cook before, and now like I woke up at 5 a.m. today, and like first thing I did is like I cooked my food for the day, and I cook food for Nima, and like I enjoy cooking now. Where before it was just the idea
you were afraid of it,
right?
It's like a newfound freedom.
Yeah,
veganism for those of us that struggled with an eating disorder. It almost is like now there is never a time where we think I should or shouldn't have this, or I shouldn't do this because I haven't worked out today,
right.
Or the calories in, calories out. It's just this beautiful, poetic, fun ride with food that
exactly.
and it feels like it's all available because the only thing that you're not going to touch is cruelty.
Exactly.
That's it. It's not like, oh, this isn't on the plate, this, and this. No, it's just like, oh, I just don't want anything to have suffered to make it to my plate. And everything else is on limit.
Exactly. And it's also, I know that the food is nourishing my body. So I don't feel guilty about eating it. Like I don't feel guilty about eating like a sweet potato or, or tofu or rice or, bananas. I don't feel guilty about eating any of those things because my whole perception of food is completely different. Because before I went vegan, I wasn't focused on real food. I was focused on like meat, and all I ate was meat, and I would eat like barely any vegetables just because I had to. And then that was it. So then the minute that I could, I would binge on candy and donuts and ice cream and all
And
these
now
things.
you feel that with the vegetables and the grains and the whole foods you're eating, you don't have as much cravings for those? Because we actually talked to another bodybuilder, Brian Turner, who talked about he also struggled with binging. For him, it was sugar, I think,
Yeah.
At night.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like I just feel like I don't really care for it anymore because I think the reason is because when you're getting all of the nutrients that you need, you get all the micronutrients that you need, your body isn't, calling out for anything more. So before I was nutrient deficient in a lot of ways. Before I went vegan, I was anemic. I had low vitamin D, all of these things. I had low B vitamins. Like my blood tests were just terrible, but I was shredded. So people looked at me and they thought that I was like,
but dying inside.
Right, exactly. And because I was missing all those nutrients, I was just craving them. And your body knows that ice cream and cake and donuts, that those are high calorie foods. So your body starts to crave them because it's lacking. But now, all of my nutritional needs are met. So I don't really care for those things. I still enjoy like, a vegan donut if I feel like it, but I'm not even really that inclined to the junk food.
I find when I get them too, like I will eat like half of it. I'm like, that's good.
I just like
Cool.
sometimes I want to taste it. Sometimes I want to like support the business.
Right.
Like and like sometimes it's
go vegan donuts.
I have to eat this
exactly.
donut.
Exactly. And it's like, sometimes it's just like a fun experience. Like there's like in where we live in Long Beach, there's like a soft serve shop that has vegan soft serve. And it's just like fun to go and get like a cone and it looks all cute and stuff. Yeah. But it's not even so much that it's just like, oh my gosh, I need it or I'm going to die. Where like before it was like my body needed it. But now it's like, I know
you've completely changed your whole gut microbiome. So there's not little mad mean men down there going, we need fat and sugar and dairy. And...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you tell if a client comes to you with that same relationship with food that you had that was unhealthy? What is a step or two that you encourage them to take? How do you deal with it?
I always analyze kind of where they are and what their goals are. So if a girl comes to me and she weighs 100 pounds and she has, 15% body fat and she's like, I want to lose 20 pounds. She already has a bad idea of her goals. And, I'll kind of go back and forth like, okay, well, why? And then she'll say, oh, like, I just feel really fat. And if she's clearly not fat and doesn't have like, and she's not overweight, then I'll let her know like that you don't need to diet. You need to just eat healthily and repair your relationship with food and with yourself. And I normally will not have them weigh themselves if they can't weigh themselves from an objective standpoint. Once you get to that certain point, like I'm at a point now where I can weigh myself and I can count my calories just to kind of data track. But when I do it, it doesn't trigger me. But if it does trigger them, like if counting calories, weighing yourself, or checking your body fat triggers them, I won't.
Or weighing your food.
Exactly, weighing your food and stuff. If that triggers you, then I tell them not to do it. I tell them to just eat intuitively, and they can still like our clients get recipes, and they can still make the recipes and not have to worry about the calories and stuff like that because it is very, very common.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is very well. All three of us here today have experienced eating disorders. So 3 out of 3 of the women in this room.